It is time for grammar, the language, and logic of a sentence. And Tammy, I will turn my screen off and hand things over to you. Thanks for being here today.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh, Joe, I appreciate you. You are just a joy. Hello, everyone, and I'm glad you all typed in where you're all from. Let me give you a little bit about myself. Joe gave some of my particulars, but actually some other exciting things in my life. I'm married to HUD, and we have 4 grown children, 8 grandchildren with more coming. As he had mentioned before, we live in Minneapolis, but we were about nearly 6 years ago, we moved from Ohio. During those years, while I was in, we were in Cincinnati, my family and I were a part of a classical Christian school called Mars Hill Academy. I was the third grade teacher. That was my kind of my anchor grade. And I taught other grades in the sense of teaching other grammar while I was writing the curriculum. As Joe had mentioned, I retired from the classroom in 2013, but I feel like through writing this well-ordered language, I've been continuing my teaching in a different medium. I am curious about all of you. Now, I'm so thankful that Joe asked you to tell where you're all from, but if you're familiar with well-ordered language, or if you teach it, I'd love to know that. Put in that same chat box if you are familiar with level 1 or level 2 or even 3 or 4. I'd love to hear that. If you're new to well-ordered language, or even you didn't know anything about well-ordered language and just happened to get this in your email, I'd love to know that as well. It's odd because you're all teachers, you're all educators, and in education in the past, we would teach, we would see our students, right? Whether you were in a classroom or in your lecture hall, you got to see the faces. Well, it's so interesting now because with Zoom as being a technology and well-ordered language or a webinar as this is, you don't get to see who your audience is. So to kind of feed and help you all to know, are you new to it? What are you doing? We'll be able to help. And again, with those questions that come through, if there's something particular, if you already started the school year and you already found like a bump in the road, this is the place, this is the time. I'm more than happy to answer your questions. So with that, I guess my goal today, I really want you to hear is yes, keep doing. I'm new to it. Tell me anything else. Never heard of it before. Yes, this is. Ooh, you're doing level 4. Nice. Philip, I'll be happy to help you along if you're new to it and you're teaching level 4. Ooh. Yes, let's keep talking on that one because you are jumping into not just the deep end, you're going far and wide. So we'll keep talking, but level 1, we'll be talking. Nice. Anyways, here we go. I will discuss. Today, we're going to be talking about the language and the logic of the sentence in light of English grammar, using the core principles of well-ordered language. My goal is I hope to challenge you to rethink how you teach grammar in light of knowing the language of grammar or the definitions and connecting what is known to the unknown. I want you to be thinking about the what and the why of the elements in the sentence or the analysis. And we're going to even touch on a bit on the recognizing the relationships among those elements, which would be diagramming. And then I'm going to end with just an appreciation of grammar to enjoy the beauty of language. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to just click right in. Here we go. And let's get started into well-ordered language. Here we go. Click. Here we go. So let's get started. Grammar is the first of the 7 liberal arts. Now, this picture is an engraving of grammar as being personified as a maiden tutor, as it may be, and she has 2 students with her. Well, this is a Dutch artist who did this. He was Driebel, and he actually did a whole series of 7 of the 7 liberal arts. And you're familiar with them. That's the grammar, the logic, the rhetoric, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And perhaps just to lean in a little bit more, with the 7 liberal arts, they were broken up into 2, the trivium and the quadrivium. The trivium, tree being three, Vivian being way, the three-way being grammar, logic, and rhetoric, and the quadrivium, quad being four, Vivian being way, and the Latin would be, the second part would be the art of numbers, or arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. Unfortunately, my slide is not as crisp and clear as I want to, and at the bottom, though you may not read it clearly, even if you did, it would be all done in either Latin, and there's even Dutch here. But as I translate this, look carefully at this picture. It says, by me, grammar speaking, by me are the principles and the preamble to great things gathered together. And from there, may one progress toward the learned arts. So if you look carefully, the maiden, the tutor, she's holding a switch. That's actually a switch, a learning switch for discipline. That's what it represents. Grammar is a discipline to be learned. The younger child, the student, is engrossed in learning the basics. And again, if we could see the slide clearly, he's learning his letters. He's engrossed, he's excited, grammar's pointing to it. But I like the second little guy. He is admiring grammar as she gives wisdom. Now, I want you, by the end of this, for you to admire grammar, to see her as she is, as a schoolmaster, a school tutor, as a friend. I want you to see grammar is made up of many elements working together to make ideas come alive. Oh yes, there is discipline in learning these parts, but they are a welcome building block to learning. Many times grammar is taught without purpose. Okay, they're viewing grammar as a necessity, or but not guiding them to understanding the structure of thought. Today, I want you to appreciate the discipline while gaining the joy of grammar. So let's just take it this way. If grammar is the vehicle, if language is the vehicle by which thoughts are known, then we must understand how thoughts are formed. And if grammar is the structure of language, then we must understand what grammar is. But what is grammar? Is grammar an art or a science? Again, since this has been a part of the 7 liberal arts, and grammar has been one of those for literally centuries, the question has often been asked, is it an art? Grammar is the art of speaking and writing the language correctly, according to William Lilly. Or perhaps grammar is a science of language by Kirkham. Now, if you've ever been in any of my webinars before, or in any of my workshops, you have seen this quote, because I love it. It explains it well. Grammar is the science which teaches us to explain the poets and the historians. It is the art which qualifies us to write and speak correctly. Grammar is the source and foundation of the liberal arts. Now, how did we get here? What are we doing with this? Well, it's interesting in my own, as we move forward, sentence-based instruction. What is grammar? How do you best teach it? Fascinating. When I joined the staff at Mars Hill Academy in 2000, we were a young little classical Christian school. And I have to let you know, we were little mavericks. We were trying to understand classical education. Or granted, we are 20 years from that, beyond 20 years. And a lot of those questions that you're asking perhaps for the first time, some of you, we were asking it back then. See, our school started about that time, and our first curriculum decisions were whatever we chose an ACCS school that was very trusted and respected, and we basically adopted all of their curriculum, which was great. But in time, we began really leaning into asking, how do you teach classically? How do you go beyond to looking for the what in learning and get to the why? How do you train your students to think? Now, at that time, way in the beginning at Mars Hill, we were using Shurley grammar. It was called Shurley grammar, not Shurley English as it is today. And I actually had taught it. I've taught, in fact, many of the levels. I knew the question answer flow, and I knew how to identify the what in a sentence. But what we began finding, at least at Mars Hill with our students, the why was missing. Oh, they could do the question answer flow. But if you put a question to them or a sentence to them they didn't know very well, or if it was something outside of their scope, they were kind of lost. So I share all this with you, primarily for our story, perhaps your story, but we wanted to dig in. How was it taught before? Well, Thomas Harvey has a picture of him here on your screen. He was a grammarian of that time. And the fascinating thing to me is he didn't ask the question of the what, but he asked the question of the why. See, during the 1800s, there was a sentence-based instruction. Now, maybe another day, another time, we can get in the history of how English grammar was taught in the United States. But by this point, we had moved to the sentence-based instruction. In other words, we were looking at all those words on a page and began seeing them as a whole thought and began analyzing, began taking it apart. And this is what Thomas Harvey, he, like many of the grammarians of the time, he looked at thought, he looked at sentences, the grammar, the language, and approached it in a logical way. He defined his terms. He showed the reason for the structure. And he taught the logic via an analytical catechism of sorts. So this perked my fascination. What is this analytical piece and why was it effective? Well, again, he wasn't the only grammarian of the time. As you can see in this web, just take a moment and take a peek and look at this carefully. What you can see here is sentence in the middle, principal elements or principal parts at the top, and then adjuncts, which would be the subordinate elements underneath. Now, I'm not asking for you to mimic this in your classroom. But again, this was the time, the era, in 1843 circa, this is actually a giant wall chart. This was the time back when the specifics were being looked, the sciences, the taxonomy ranking, the kingdom, phylum, class, order, family, genus, species. This is that kind of thinking. What Clark did, he was actually I just recently discovered this, he was a headmaster in a New York school. And he taught grammar, he wanted to simplify grammar. Believe it or not, this is simplifying it. But what he did was he also developed a catechism, of course, and he also took the thought and ended up doing something which we now give him credit for being the father of diagramming. See, what Stephen Clark did in his practical grammar, he took the sentence, the stars will lift up their heads and then rejoice. He gave bubbles to the thoughts. The big giant bubble, stars, is your subject, and then bubbled the information from it to try to help his students understand what visually was happening in the sentence. Well, shortly after that, Reed and Kellogg ended up designing a diagramming way of lines and sticks, diagonal lines, that actually was what Stephen Clark was trying to do, but made it simpler. Now, again, there were many diagramming at the time. I want to put that out there. You can find them if you want to hunt down old used bookstores. You can find these old primers and find them. But Reed and Kellogg became the standard flow, and we still use it today. So as we're thinking of it, understanding the what and the why of grammar is what I want to get at the heart of this. See, again, here, if we go back, Mars Hill, there I was, we were trying to figure out the best way to teach grammar. We looked at the ancients, we looked at the grammarians of the 1800s, we looked at Harvey's grammar and decided we should think through how we are approaching this. We found that Harvey's grammar set it up like a primer of a Greek or a Latin text. We discovered that that catechism piece was actually a piece of a way of teaching that we hadn't considered. We discovered that diagramming was a helpful tool. And then we learned the importance of two more things. We learned about the language of grammar, whether definition or categorical. This became a really key part of learning. Now, this idea of a sentence is a thought was an important aspect to teach. Now, the goal to teach grammar to young children, that is to stir their wonder and foster understanding. Perhaps it is for them to see and hear the story going on and participate in it. And well-ordered language focuses on learning the language of learning, in this case, learning the language of grammar, by both looking at the definitional learning and the categorical learning. Definitional learning is the students are learning the language of learning as they learn the definition of new terms in order to use it. While categorical learning is learning the students are learning and creating language or conceptual categories, in this case, for the 8 parts of speech as a framework of thought. So how do we go about doing this? In the definitional aspect of definitional learning is the process of memorizing foundational or key definitions. Now, you know this and you do this. If you have any 2-year-old in your life or 3-year-old, you know this and you've seen this, perhaps in your own home or in your neighborhood. But you see the little 2-year-old that very proudly, or 3-year-old proudly pronounces A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and he'll sing the alphabet all the way to W, X, Y, Z, very happy. Parents all are clapping, phones are taking out, videotaping it. It's a huge accomplishment, right? Identifying and saying all 26 letters. It's a beginning. They sang it because the frame of the child at that point is singing. But do they fully really understand all the nuances of those letters? When he said or she said G, does they know there's 2 sounds of G, G and J, or 2 sounds of C, K and S? Does they know that the letter O can go ah, O, oo, or ah? Does they know that? Absolutely not. Those little pieces are just memory pegs. The alphabet is what it is. This is that same concept when we're doing when we're learning about grammar. We're learning the definitions. And at the very beginning, the frame of the child may be to jump and hop and skip and enjoy it that way. But this aspect of singing or movement or chanting is all part of that learning process. And then you build from that. So when I say sing, 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 we're going to be doing that. Chant, chant, chant. I hope you're doing that with your students. Whether you're a home educator or a classroom teacher, you need to get over your inability or your shyness of singing. I know with well-ordered language, there is a MP3 that you can have the music and they can sing with that. But they need to sing. That is helpful. You need to be all about of reciting, repeating, retelling, rehearsing, reviewing all the time. So let's do this. Let's look at this one. This is the 8 parts of speech. So hear me as I say this, and then we're going to do this together. The 8 parts of speech are classes of words with the same kind of meaning and use, and they are nouns, verbs, adjectives and adverbs, prepositions, pronouns, conjunctions, and interjections. Now, I must admit, if you were in that classroom, we were all together. Let's forget being a cyber classroom, but if we were all in the very same room, I would take this on in a very different way. I would have you do it with me. So you're all muted, so you got this ready. We're going to do, what are the 8 parts of speech? And I just say with my voice, listen to me, because you won't be able to see it, but that's okay. I'm going to go with it. The 8 parts of speech are classes of words with the same kind of meaning and use, and they are nouns, verbs, adjectives and adverbs, preposition, pronouns, conjunction, interjections. I think it's only fair. I'll give you the words again. The 8 parts of speech are classes of words with the same kind of meaning and use. Now, I want you to be saying this. I don't know where you are, but I want you to be saying these out loud. Ready? And they are nouns, verbs, adjectives and adverbs, preposition, pronouns, conjunction, interjections. Now, if we were there, I would literally have you put your arms above your head when we get to that part. So let's try it again. Ready? The 8 parts of speech are classes of words with the same kind of meaning and use. Ready? We need a little stretch here. And they are nouns, verbs, adjectives and adverbs, preposition, pronouns, conjunction, interjections. Now you're asking, why is she doing this? I'm doing this because this is like the alphabet. All right, the 8 parts of speech are so important that you need to have this in your memory banks. Your students need to be able to give you at a drop of a hat, what are the 8 parts of speech? And you'll say, students, what are the 8 parts of speech? Or if you have your son or daughter there, Billy, what are the 8 parts of speech? And he goes, the 8 parts of speech are classes of words with the same kind of meaning and use. And they are nouns, verbs, adjectives and adverbs, preposition, pronouns, conjunction, interjections. All right. Now, I want you to take that piece of paper that's right next to you, that notebook that you end up pulling out for the webinar. If you don't have one, grab one real quick, grab it out, top of the page. See if you can write the 8 parts of speech are, fill it in. The 8 parts of speech are classes of, write this out, you're writing this, words, classes of words with, the 8 parts of speech are classes of words with the same kind of meaning and use. Okay, now this is your chance, so you check your work. The 8 parts of speech are classes of words with the same kind of meaning and use. Now I want you to go ahead and list those out. I'm going to give you literally, I'm going to watch the clock. You get 45 seconds to write all 8 parts of speech. Go. The 8 parts of speech are classes of words with the same kind of meaning and use. And they are nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs. Nouns, verbs, adjectives, adverbs. Preposition, pronouns, conjunction, interjections. Exactly. This is key. So let's do this. I'm going to show you. This is a teacher, a phenomenal teacher, Tracy DeBra in Cincinnati, Ohio, and she is going to do the 8 parts of speech in her classroom. I want you to see how grammar is not dull, how they're all involved, and they are giving 100%. This is a 3rd grade classroom doing this.
Parts of speech are classes of words with the same kind of meaning and use, and they are nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, prepositions, pronouns, conjunctions, interjections.
I hope you saw that engage and that excitement, okay? Remember, this is that repeating, that singing is there to drill, not to kill, but to thrill. Okay, so you're drilling these concepts to thrill your students. I can't emphasize how important it is to sing and chant and to move your little bodies, especially the little frames. You probably could also, I always try to jump as well, but watch this next video. Here's Tracy, she continues on, but she's not just, now that we've got the 8 parts of speech and we've got to establish, you have nouns, verbs, adjectives, and adverbs, preposition, pronouns, conjunction, interjections. Now she's going to go ahead and work that muscle. She's going to pull out and she's going to focus in on adverbs. Okay, so she's going to ask her first student, she's going to ask first for a verb, and then she's going to ask for an adverb. I want you to see how they're all standing and they're attentive and they're ready and they're eager. Okay, now granted, if you are a home educator, you're like, my Billy wouldn't do this. True, I don't know your students, but in the same respect, this is your license to go ahead and try it. Do something different. Think outside the box. Watch how she does this though. This is definitely worth your time.
I need a verb. Jumped. Show me jumped. To describe that verb. Quickly. Quickly. Show me jumping quickly. Ran. Show me what it looks like to run. Steadily. What is an adverb? Is a part of speech. It modifies a verb. An adjective adverb. It answers the questions how, when, or where. And what an adverb is a part of speech.
I hope you heard how she did this. I mean, she is such, the kids were all involved. It was really fun as they were doing it. They're asking the concepts. You ask what it is, and then we ask examples of it. This is, if you're familiar with well-ordered language, when I have practice it in the teacher's notes, this is like a practice it moment, okay? Going around real quick, and give me a verb, give me an adverb that would go with it. This kind of firing quick is the energy that I'm thinking of. So we've done definitional learning. What is this categorical learning thing? Well, it's the process of acquiring categories to help them learn concepts. Now, if we had more time together, I would share with you a book called A Child's Picture Grammar, which kind of gets at this. In fact, this particular picture actually comes from that book. But all it is takes the 8 parts of speech and makes them into viable metaphors, things that students can put their minds around. They can help them learn a concept better. Because what you find in well-ordered language, we say it's a adjectival element or an adverbial element because it modifies a verb. Well, what is an adverbial element? An adverbial element's like saying an adverbial category. The category of adverb is so much bigger than just adverbs. It goes bigger. Same thing with adjectival things. So let me show you. If we think of an adjectives, all right, if you have your well-ordered language book, whether level 1, 2, 3, or 4, you have a chapter, or you'll have a chapter that's together with the concept of adjectives. If you have level 1, if you have the old version, it's on page 99 and 100. If you have the revised, and just look at the front of the book to see, there's a black swipe that says revised. That's the revised copy. That's on page 81 to 83. But this concept of cupcakes is the metaphor to help identify that category. Okay, categorical learning is key. So I'm just going to stop this because I just want to sit and talk with you and have you feel like I'm sitting there with you. All right. So I want you to think of this. All right. Imagine with me. Here you are. You're going to teach adjectives, and you bring in 3 cupcakes. Okay, or maybe you bring enough cupcakes, the little mini cupcakes. Some parent helper could make them, or whether or take vanilla wafers, whatever. So you're going to go ahead and bring 3 kinds of frosting. Same cake, different frosting. First frosting might be lemon. Okay, so you have lemon, and it has like a zesty little, I don't know, kind of citrusy, and you frost it, have all the little ones take a bite and taste this lemon thing and say, all right, students, what do you taste? They go, oh, lemony. So you write on your, right on your board, you write lemony, sweet, tangy, as many adjectives you could think of. Good. Pick up the next one, put chocolate on it. Put chocolate sprinkles. Now taste it. What do you think? Chocolate, good. Tasty, delicious, whatever words they come up. The last one, put guacamole on it. They make faces, yicky, awful. And you say, exactly. And you look at them, the students. This is what an adjective is. And they go, what? Adjectives are like frosting on cupcakes. It was the exact same cupcake. It just had different toppings. So the same thing with a noun. You get the same noun. You could have a tree, and you could put on a maple tree, a snowy tree, or you could put a burnt tree. You could see it's the same adjective, but 3 different pictures. Same cupcake, 3 different tastes. This is the excitement of categorical learning. See, they need to understand a category. Now, again, in level 1, I have to be the first to tell you the concept of an adjective is not hard for these little bucks. They are doing fine. They understand it. They love eating it, what have you. It's getting the language of an adjectival element. But you have to understand, by the time they get to level 2, okay, you have level 2 has this. Here, let me take this through in this respect, because I want you to see what I'm talking about. Okay, here we are, right? Okay. Hey, hang on, let me just get that out of here. I'm gonna pop it over. Just want this little glitch there, no worries. Here we go. Level 1, beginning grammar, all right? We're learning about adjectives. Great, there's no problem with it. They're adjectival elements, but we can learn what an adjective is. By level 2, that's intermediate grammar. At this point, you're still learning about grammars, but you're gonna also learn about predicate adjectives. You're gonna learn a little bit different. It's still an adjectival element, but you're broadening the concept of understanding what a predicate adjective is with a linking verb. You're also learning about adjectival prepositional phrases. You see, all phrases behave like one of the 8 parts of speech. And by the end of level 2, you're doing relative clauses, which is a clause that's behaving like an adjective. It's an adjectival element. By level 3, advanced grammar, you're still going back to, you're still dealing adjectives, you're talking about attributive adjectives, you're talking about predicate adjectives, you're learning still using predicate adjectives, adjectival prepositional phrases, you're still learning about relative clauses, but you're learning about participles now, verbals, right? You're learning about participles and infinitives that behave adjectivally. This concept of adjectival elements, this category is growing. Level 4, that's intensive grammar, and that's exactly what it is. It is where you're learning participial phrases to add to everything else in infinitives. So let me go through a sentence now. Some of you are familiar, what are the tools of analysis? You have to first understand the structure of a sentence, right? The type of a sentence, there's simple, compound, complex. So you need to understand the structure. So when we're understanding how to analyze what is in a sentence, we have to understand its structure. You have to think about what is the order of thought. So if you're understanding the order of thought, you've got to understand the sentences. There are 4 kinds of sentences. You need to understand the principal elements, and then the subordinate elements. So let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate for you how to analyze a sentence. I'm going to identify the sentence first, the kind of sentence, the subject, the predicate, and an adverb and adjectives. So the sentence would be, the black crow cackled loudly. This is a sentence because it's a group of words that expresses complete thought. This is a declarative sentence because it makes a statement. This sentence is about crow. So crow is the subject because it is what the sentence is about. This sentence tells us that crow cackled. So cackled is the predicate because it is what the sentence tells us about crow. It is a predicate verb because it shows action. There is no linking verb because predicate verbs do not need linking verbs. Loudly tells us how the crow crackled. The crow cackled. So loudly is an adverbial element because it modifies a verb. It is an adverbial it's an adverb, sorry. Black tells us what kind of crow. So black is an adjective element, an adjectival element because it modifies a noun. It is an adjective. The article adjective. So what I've done here, I want you to see the principal elements are what's makes a sentence is crow cackled. The S stands for subject, PV capitalized above the sentence is easy, clean, I can always see it. Beneath it are all my subordinate elements, such as in adjectives or adverbs. They're marked and they're pointing to what they're actually modifying. Here's a class that's going to go ahead and do it. This is Natalie, and she's Natalie Walls from Marshall Academy. She is going to go ahead and do it with her class. Let's read the sentence.
The black crow cackled loudly.
Are there any conjunctions?
No, ma'am.
Are there any prepositional phrases?
No, ma'am.
All right, then here we go.
The black crow cackled loudly.
This
This
is
is a sentence and it is declarative. This sentence is about crow. So, crow is the subject because it is what the sentence tells about. This sentence tells us that crow cackled. So, cackled is the predicate because it is what the sentence tells us about. Crow is a predicate verb because it shows action. Loudly tells us how crow cackled. So loudly is an adverbial element because it modifies the verb. It is an adverb. Black tells us what kind of crow. So black is an adjective element because it modifies a noun. It is an adjective. The article adjective.
Now, I just wanted to say she did a great job. She also she did some little modifications primarily because she did this later in the year. In the beginning of the year, there's parts that are just a little bit longer where you explain that it's a sentence, that it's a group of words that express complete thought and whatnot. But Nellie did a phenomenal job and I'm so thankful for her. But now you can kind of see how it goes in the classroom. If you were going to diagram it, a diagramming is taking those principal elements and just putting it beneath it in that way. But if I were going to do, let's just go real quick. Let's see if we were going to analyze another sentence. I want you to say it with me. Ready? Leaves swirl around. This is a sentence because it's a group of words that express complete thought. It is a declarative sentence because it makes a statement. This sentence is about leaves. So leaves is the subject because it is what the sentence is about. This sentence tells us that leaves swirl. So swirl is the predicate because it is what the sentence tells us about leaves. It is a predicate verb because it shows action. There is no linking verb because predicate verbs do not need linking verbs. Around tells us how leaves swirl. So around is an adverbial element because it modifies a verb. It is an adverb. Now, as we're coming to the end, I know that we need to have question time. So I'm going to just jump right ahead to one more thing. Joe, I hope it's okay with you. I'm just going to do one more piece. And it's, you kind of, in this time so far, you've got to see definitional learning. You saw the importance of categorical learning that well-ordered language provides in each of the chapters. I gave the example of the cupcake. We got to go through 2 sentences. But let me show you kind of in a way that after using well-ordered language, students become aware of how to analyze big, long sentences and began to see how authors actually use grammar to make it beautiful. So let's just do one more thing and then I'll take your questions. Sorry. Here's a sentence from Farmer Boy 2. Mother was short and plump and pretty. A row of little red buttons ran down the front of her dress of white colored wool, from her flat white linen collar to her white apron tied around her waist. Now, why did I choose this? Well, we can think of the grammar in this. And again, the analysis that I showed you a few moments ago is important that the students learn how to analyze just the way that we had done. And if we had more time, I would actually work that muscle more. But I just want to show you, if you did something even as simple as identifying the two conjunctions, mother was short and plump and pretty. Putting those two ands make her feel short, plump, and pretty, okay? You might have been able to, as a good English teacher, drop one of the ands, put a couple of commas in there, but the author wanted to use her conjunctions to make you feel it. But look at this. Look at all the prepositional phrases in this one sentence. So I would have my students find of little red buttons is a prepositional phrase. Down the front is a prepositional phrase. Of her dress is a prepositional phrase. Of wine-colored wool is a prepositional phrase. From her flat white linen collar is a prepositional phrase. To the white apron is a prepositional phrase, and around her waist. What's the point? This sentence just is a row ran. That's what this is all about. But did you see how the author skillfully put all those prepositional phrases together to make you feel all the way going down that big long run of buttons? It's brilliant. Prepositional phrases have never looked so good. So, in conclusion, I've gone through so much during this little time, but I'm hoping in the course of it, you appreciated hearing the definitional learning, the categorical learning, and then the beauty of it all. And that's what well-ordered language does. It takes what I've just done in the short time and it brings it out. Slow and steady wins the race. It unveils it for it. So I've again covered quite a lot right here. Do you have any questions for me that I can help you with? Joe, are you still there? Joe, there you are.
Always here. Thank you, Tammy, on behalf of everyone. I could give you a round of applause myself, but I think that would be a little weird. But thank you. Thank you for sharing with us and for leading us not just with words, but through actions and chants as well. That was exceptional. We do have a few questions. I'll get through questions here as quickly as possible. We only have a few right now. Now is your chance to pop a question into the Q&A box for Tammy. Again, if you think of it after the fact, don't worry. Also, if you came in late or would like to share this webinar with someone, no worries. We are recording it. The recording will be made available on Friday. And later on Friday, it'll be publicly accessible on our YouTube channel as well. So we like to make it available a little bit earlier for those that actually register. But if you would like to share it with friends, colleagues, family members, fellow teachers, etc., who were not able to attend live, it will be on YouTube and you'll be able to share it as well. And we, of course, encourage that. So let's get to the questions, starting with a question from our friend Nancy, who is a well-ordered language teacher at School A Academy. Hi, Nancy. Thank you for joining us today. Nancy is interested in knowing your recommendations for prioritizing class time and expectations for homework. She states, obviously, sentence analysis and understanding terms are most important. To what extent should she emphasize the B-side concepts and content of the worksheets?
That's a really good question. Again, I'm not, you know your situation better than I do. You know your time allotment, where you're going to go. You nailed it right there. The sentence analysis is probably the most important. Whether you're in whichever level you're in, whether it's 1, 2, 3, or 4, you're either going to have 3 or 4 sentences that you're going to do as you're going to be analyzing. And that's up front, that's from the get-go. And I would just pause here and highly recommend you reading all 4 of the sentences or all 3 of the sentences prior to the analysis. I don't know if you caught on, but as you're moving through these, you'll see that they're actually telling a little story. It's really important, I think, for grammar to realize grammar doesn't happen in isolation. So understand there's like a little story setting going on. So you're going to go ahead and analyze, getting to your question. You're analyzing that first question, that first sentence should be done by you, especially if it's the first worksheet, you are modeling it, you're going to put it on the board, you're going to do it, you're going to guide them. So you model first, guide, and then you get to independence. But as far as the B side concepts, you know the scenario better than I do. I personally feel like as I'm putting all my energy in the analysis and knowing the definitions. By that time, they're independent. They should not take that long. They should be a 5, 10, maybe 15-minute maximum to do the additional activities that are on the rest of the page. So again, as homework, at least when I was teaching at Mars Hill, I had it all done in my classroom. I never had grammar homework. So don't quote me. You have different scenarios than I do. You know how that works best for your classroom. But I find that when I have done the teacher directed part, and I must nail that analysis should be done corporately. It needs to be done where all the little voices are saying and speaking and talking and getting all involvement. That should be a group activity. Perhaps the third or the fourth sentence can be done independently, but your goal is that oral piece. Remember, the modalities of learning are all being used. They can see the sentence, they write the sentence, they mark the sentence, they hear the sentence, they're working at all the different pieces of it. That being said, so there's very little for them to do independently. And again, whether you have time in your classroom to do it or do this homework, that's you know that situation better than I do. Can I also make one other note, Joe? Some of us might have the old edition, and some of you might have the new edition where it says revised. The old edition has a different piece called Learn It in it. It actually, when you have a lesson, it has, you have your sentences and then you have a Learn It and Review It, and it's set up differently than the revised. The revised is like level 2, level 3, level 4. It's set in, and those Learn It's that used to be in the first old one is embedded into the practice it exercises that are in the teacher's manual. And I just wanted to emphasize that because I was so impressed, Joe, you had put the teacher workshop links right on the registration piece. And I really appreciated that. And I went through them and saw, oh, wow, the level 1 piece is for the old books. So just mindful of it going, oh, I've got to revise. It will still work, but it won't be as exact as if you had the old piece. So I recommend and I'm thrilled that you're using the new one. There you go.
Thanks, Tammy. Great question from Andrea. And I'm going to expand on her question a little bit. Andrea asked specifically for her situation, if you were starting a 4th grader, would you still start with level 1? And I know what you're going to say to this. Just for the sake of everyone, well-ordered language is targeted. The target grade range is grades 3 through 6. But Tammy, could you kind of walk us through not only a 4th grader, but also possibly a 5th or a 6th grader? And
sure.
what about 7th and 8th graders? Is well-ordered language not for them?
Yeah.
So maybe kind of go grade by grade, starting with 4th graders, and talk about where they should be starting, how and why, to kind of expand on Andrea's great question.
Yeah. When I talk level, let's go back let's approach it this way, Joe. Level 1, level A and B is written for 3rd and 4th graders. I know I have schools, I have families, home educators that take book 1A and they might do it in 2nd grade, or they space it out and they do it. That's fine. Just like I have 5th grade, I've had 5th grade schools that have actually used level 1 in their 5th grade. I'm showing you the span. We purposely did not put a grade on the front of the book, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, but levels. Because again, as I had that slide, I decided to go put that slide up, that level 1 is beginning grammar, level 2 is intermediate grammar, level 3 is advanced grammar, and level 4 is intensive grammar. So what do I mean by that? That breakup is helpful to understand. Beginning grammar, I wrote it with 2 things in mind, especially level 1. Today, for whatever, we could blame lots of things, but a lot of educators, whether home educators or even classroom educators, never had English grammar. It's kind of like they had language arts and they did a head nod to grammar, but they never really understood the concepts of it. So I wrote it with the teacher in mind, as well as the student. So again, you know your situation better than I do. If you have if you're a home educator and your little one truly has never had any grammar before and he's in 4th grade, I would absolutely put him in level. I would put him in level 1. That wouldn't be a heartbeat question. I mean, that would be fine for him to do it. But that being said, intermediate grammar has enough repetitiveness to it, in at least book A, and it also introduces the diagramming piece. Level 2 is intermediate. It takes for granted that you've been through level 1 and you know the analysis. Now that analysis piece, especially as home educators, you're like, I'm not gonna bother with it. That's the secret ingredient. Because in the beginning, it is simple. The concepts are easy. You know what an adjective, you know what an adverb is. That's not hard. My little guy can get it. It's learning the script. If you understand level 1 well, you will do great when you do prepositional, when you do relative clauses, adverbial clauses, noun clauses, because a clause is basically what you're doing in level 1. The concept of understanding the role of a subject, the concept of why it is, not just the what. Remember, we're not looking for what, but why. Why is that a predicate adjective? Why is that a predicate nominative? So these pieces of the analysis are critical. That's the reason why we went and found the grammarians of the past, and I resurrected them in a sense and brought them into modern terms so that the moderns can benefit and understand well. So I'm not answering your question directly, but I want you to feel the level 1 has a lot of wiggle room. I would say 3rd grade, 4th grade. Level 2 could be 4th and 5th easily. Level 3, 5th and 6th. Level 4 could be 6th and 7th. Easily break it up that way. I have one school that did 3rd grade was level 1, 4th grade was level 2. When they got to 5th grade, they did 3A. 6th grade, they did 3B. 7th grade, they did 4A. 8th grade, they did 4B. And I wanted you to feel the weight of the intensity of what grammar is and why we're doing it in that way. It's key, because sometimes we're like, my kid's in 5th grade, he's never had grammar, but we are in level 3, I know it. And you plop them there and they get disillusioned. They're like, this is so hard. Well, you're in advanced grammar. It's like being dropped into an advanced grammar, advanced Greek class or an advanced Latin class. Would you ever put your kid in level 3 of Latin or Greek? No, no. So give yourself license to go, oh, I get it. And if your little one is actually in 6th grade and you have never had grammar, I would put them in level 2. Just take your time and work it through, but do not, if they've never had grammar, if they've never had well-ordered language, do not put them in level 3 or level 4. It will be really hard. So there you go. Is that helpful?
Thank you, Tammy. Yeah, it is important to understand, even throughout our website, you'll see language that says well-ordered language is intended for grades 3 through 6. But it is important to understand how the series does stretch out through 7th grade and 8th grade. And Tammy, we have another question that pushes beyond 7th and 8th grade.
Okay.
Would an adult go through the well-ordered language books the same as a younger student? And what are some recommendations that you have for adults when it comes to studying and learning grammar? And I think we could also maybe apply this to high schoolers too. But you could draw a distinction. We'll keep pushing past 8th grade here and talking about grammar and possibly well-ordered language study for high school and then adults as well.
Yeah, that's a multi-pronged question in some respects, Joe, because I've had, as you said, adults. I've had a lot of adults come to me, whether quietly or whatnot, and they'll say, wow, I never understood grammar until I taught it. Okay, your well-ordered language instructed me well, so I could teach it. So as an adult, I'd almost recommend finding a little person to teach it, and you could go ahead and tutor someone and teach them at the same time, you could learn it that way. If you're like, no, I just want to learn grammar, how could I do this? I would almost recommend starting at level 2 for you, and really start working through it. Don't be shy to learn the analysis. It's again, it's the key, it's the heart of the whole program. As far as your high schooler, if your high schooler has never had grammar before, they are going to, and I know it's hard because this is written for a 3 through 6 kind of a mindset, 3 through 8 mindset. And when you get a freshman or a sophomore in high school seeing, Winston and Kelvin and the little, that has a kidsy kind of feel to it, take the material, glean from that aspect and teach it that way. If you're an instructor of high schoolers, take the material and then put it to their level is the best way to describe it. The diagramming alone would be helpful, but again, it's a conceptual aspect, but diagramming would be probably a way to also be helpful to that, use that from our, in level 2, level 3, we end up taking again, advanced grammar of how you diagram from it, as well as intensive. It's helpful, it's there, but it's going to require an instructor to do a little bit more work to make it applicable for a high school student, if that's the case. And as an adult, you're going to be able to think through going, oh, I'm understanding this. You'll be able to read it in a different way. Does that help?
Thank you, Tammy. We'll wrap up here with, well, we just had another question come in. I'll ask Andrew's question first, and then we'll see if we have some time for this last one. But Andrew, who is joining us from Nairobi, Kenya today, welcome, Andrew, is asking about the opposite end of the scale. How can we prepare very young students for the well-ordered language years? What can we do with children ages 3 through 7 in the areas of grammar?
I love that question. In fact, can I do a sneak peek, Joe? Can I put that out there? There's something coming in the works in the next year or two for these grades, for our younger grades. But in the time being is what we have now. I would personally recommend, with the frame of the child, is learn the songs. Download the songs and teach them to sing the 8 parts of speech. Let them sing what a noun is. Let them sing what a verb is. Let them sing what an adjective, an adverb, preposition, pronoun, conjunction, interjection. Let them know what principal elements are. Let them be able to sing those definitions. And that's where I would know the frame of the child. And that's what I would do. It's an easy touch in Kenya. It's an easy touch in the US. What you're doing is you're appreciating the frame of a child of a 3, a 4, a 5, a 6-year, a 7-year-old, even an 8-year-old, to know their frame right now is just to learn those definitions, just like the alphabet was before. Any other questions there?
Great, thanks, Tammy. Yeah, we do have one more. It's a little more specific.
Okay.
But we typically get this question at least once every time that we do a grammar related event. And that is the question of transitioning from Shurley, another popular grammar provider, to well-ordered language. And this particular question has to do with transitioning after doing 3 years of Shurley English 1, 2, and 3. So Tammy, do you have an answer to this specific question? And maybe a general comment on transitioning from Shurley to well-ordered language? I'm not sure how familiar you are with the two, but perhaps you could end with a little compare contrast.
I can. And actually, I think on their website, we have a comparison, Joe, that you could pull that up maybe. Or if
we do, I'll look for that in the meantime. Yep.
If I were the instructor and you know your students well and they've done well, I think the hardest sell or the hardest transitional piece will be get your teachers on board. Okay. And I know that sounds strange. The older we get, the more set we get in our ways. I think students are much more pliable and willing to go ahead and learn a new script. So I would recommend actually doing level 2 in your 4th grade, I think you can do it if you go slow. If you feel that, and I mean slow because I want you, the reason why level 1 starts so slowly is for both the teacher and the student to get on board to learn the script. Okay, so your very first chapter is you're learning that it's a sentence because it's a group of words that express complete thought, and you're learning the 4 kinds of sentences. And you're also learning, and then chapter 2, you're learning about what subject are. Chapter 3, you're learning what the predicate verbs are. Chapter 4 is adverbs. Chapter 5 is adjectives. Well, in level 2, you're having sentences, types of sentences, subject and predicate, all in chapter 1. But all of that script that took us 6 weeks to learn here, I'm in level 2, you're doing it in 2 weeks. So what it is accelerated. So I would pull back the ponies if that were the case and slow it down if you start with level 2 and really get them, as well as you as teacher, to know that script. Because once you know the script, then because every chapter you're going to learn a little bit more of the script, a little bit more of the script. Level 2, you're also getting within a heartbeat, you're doing predicate adjective and predicate nominatives. I mean, you're moving right on conceptually because you're intermediate grammar. Again, you know your students better than I do, but it's going to be the teacher who feels comfortable learning that script, getting them up and running. That would be your level 1. If you think no, level 2, the script, I think they can do it. And I think my kids can handle predicate adjective and predicate nominative. I'm going with level 2. Then I would go that route. How's that? Any other thoughts?
Thanks, Tammy. We'll wrap up there. And we do have a PDF comparing well-ordered language to Shurley grammar. That PDF is no longer on our site. So I'll see if that's something we can make publicly accessible again. But for the time being, we don't have that readily available. There is some information in our FAQ section on well-ordered language that does discuss why well-ordered language is different than other grammar curriculums, and that would be worth checking out. And speaking of resources, I'll take some time now and just quickly share a new grammar resource page that's been created in the past year, kind of pulling together all our well-ordered language resources and books and putting them in one spot for you. I did share that link. It's a great link to bookmark. I'll show you how you can access it through the front door of our website. That's classicalacademicpress.com/pages/subject-grammar. And that can be found here. And this is a little look at our main page, classicalacademicpress.com. The way to get to this well-ordered language page, we're going to do some site maintenance to hopefully make these pages a little more accessible, is to go to the series tab. So the series tab right here, you'll see all of our curriculum series, including well-ordered language. And if you click on that well-ordered language button, it takes you to our well-ordered language resource, or landing page, as we like to call it. This is a great place to point other grammar teachers, well-ordered language or not, to, because some of the grammar resources, not just well-ordered language, but grammar resources here can be very helpful. So we have a synopsis of the series here, a quick link to shop, scope and sequence, frequently asked questions, and an excerpt for well-ordered language. A little bit further, you'll find a synopsis of the well-ordered language program, which includes student edition, teacher's edition, extra practice and assessments, songs and chants. And then a little bit lower here is the cream of the crop, so to speak. And these are teacher training videos with Tammy. And Tammy, do you want to comment on why, well, not as much why, but how, even if you're teaching 1B or 2B or 3B, how these could be important? We only have teacher training videos for the level A books of the series. But do you want to take a moment and comment on that? And we are hoping to do the B levels eventually, but for now we just have 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A with Tammy.
And I think what they do is, I know, again, as a beginning teacher, if you're new to a curriculum, you just sometimes want to hear it. You want to hear how it sounds, how it should go. this is what I do in each of those. Each level, I go through a chapter. I'll go chapter 1, chapter 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I will go through the lessons where I want. In the book, it's written out. What I do is I actually will show how to do it. But also what I do is I give other little pedagogical tips on how to go ahead and teach it. In each of the different trainings, I talk about a chapter, I discuss how to analyze it. So what you're really hearing is how I would analyze that. That's how I would analyze it. This is how it would sound. Kind of like what I did during this webinar. I actually did a sentence so you could hear how it sounds. And that's kind of where I'm wanting, hoping that would be helpful. And your question about A and B, if you go through and watch the videos for all of level A, you will have that confidence to get into B, and you'll have enough to go forward with it. Again, ideally would be in the future to get the B training. But if you get through level 1 or 2 or 3 or 4A and go through the videos, that will give you the ammunition that second semester you'll feel a lot more confident to go ahead and take on B.
Thanks, Tammy.
Yeah.
I'll bring up the screen again real quickly just to show everyone one more thing. So we have a little section here on each book in the Well-Ordered Language series, links to the books, student edition, teachers edition, and program, and then extra resources for each book as well are available on this page. Full series, scope and sequence, suggested schedules, homeschooler guide, sentence analysis, Tammy's sentence analysis videos are all available here as well. And so this page, again, still kind of in the works, but we're working on making it more readily accessible. Is a good catch-all for well-ordered language resources. And another good well-ordered language resource are our online classes, which we do love to make sure people know about. If you're not quite ready to teach well-ordered language at home, we do have expert grammar teachers teaching for School A Academy. Classes start September 6th, so there's still a week to sign up. But if you go to School A Academy, it's classical online courses through Classical Academic Press. And if you go to academics and all courses, you'll see well-ordered language 1, 2, 3, and 4 are available online through School Academy as well. So it's something we always like to mention too. Tammy, any final thoughts from you before we close up shop today?
Yes, well, I'm just putting right now, some of you asked about the child's picture grammar.
Yeah.
Okay, it has been out of print. It was written, I think, 1900, and it's been reprinted, but I'm going to put this in the, I hope I'm doing this. I just added it to the comments section so you can grab it there. But English Grammar Revolution is a publishing, they have republished it. And again, the goal of this, the joy of this is literally the whimsical way of viewing the 8 parts of speech. That was one thing. My last closing words is thank you, Joe. I appreciate always working with you, and it's a delight to have you, and I'm very excited for, do I even mention what's going to happen on the 10th?
Oh, you can say it. I might edit it out when we send the recording out.
The select that are on still, Joe's getting married on the 10th, so please be praying for him. But I'm all very, very thankful for all of you. And if you ever have any feedback or thoughts or questions, don't be shy to ask Cap. And if you direct it right to me saying, I'd like to ask this to Tammy, or I'd like this message, please do. I've had many of ones to that have asked out questions or even comments, or even better, I've had sweet little videos of their children who have sung. In fact, I have, my favorite one is one there in the middle of Walmart singing grammar songs. So I just want you to know I appreciate all of you, and may God bless you as you start this year.
Indeed, I echo that. Thank you, Tammy, for revealing my big news, and appreciate all the well wishes from our incredible community, whether you're just joining the Classical Academic Press community and the Classical Education Renewal. We're so blessed and happy to partner with you. And well-ordered language, grammar is just one of the many subjects that CAP is proud to create, to publish, and to spread around the world. As we saw today with guests joining from Kenya and Brazil and England, we're so thankful for this growing community that is emphasizing and cherishing the true, the good, and the beautiful.
Amen.
So, Tammy, thanks for wrapping up the month of August. God bless everyone as you step into the month of September, whether you started school or not. Have a wonderful rest of your week, a safe and restful Labor Day weekend, and an incredible school year. From all of us here at CAP, on behalf of Tammy, so long.
Thank you. See you later.